When men unknowingly repeat certain behaviors, they don't just create tension inside a relationship, they quietly sign its death warrant. What makes this dangerous is that these behaviors often come from good intentions. Many men believe they are acting out of love, loyalty, or emotional maturity. They avoid conflict to keep peace. They give more to prevent her from becoming indifferent. They tell themselves that real love means sacrifice without limits. Yet beneath these motivations sits a deeply flawed psychological program that was installed long before the relationship even began. From childhood, many men are taught a distorted version of virtue. They are praised for self-sacrifice, rewarded for putting others first, and told that endless accommodation is proof of goodness. The message is subtle but consistent. A good man gives up himself for others. This belief system works reasonably well in structured environments like school, work, or crisis situations where problem-solving and responsibility are rewarded. But when this same algorithm is imported into romantic relationships, the outcome becomes destructive. The shock comes when a man does everything he was taught was right. Yet, instead of appreciation, he receives emotional distance. Instead of gratitude, he gets coldness instead of deeper intimacy. She slowly pulls away. What he experiences as devotion is often registered on a biological and psychological level as weakness, lack of backbone, or absence of self-respect. Attraction does not follow the rules of romance novels or moral ideals. It follows patterns of polarity, confidence, and perceived value. This is where many men become confused and bitter. They think something is wrong with women, or that love itself is unfair. In reality, the issue is not cruelty or manipulation, it is misunderstanding. Attraction responds to strength, direction, and emotional self-containment. When a man collapses his identity into pleasing, rescuing, or proving himself, he unintentionally destroys the very foundation that once made him attractive. The goal of this discussion is not to encourage selfishness or emotional coldness. It is not about turning relationships into power games. It is about preserving both the relationship and the man's dignity. A relationship built on imbalance cannot survive long-term. No matter how pure the intentions are, respect must exist before love can stabilize, and attraction cannot grow in an environment where one person continuously lowers himself. The 5 mistakes we are about to explore all stem from the same root problem, placing the woman above oneself. Society often labels this as love, but psychologically, it creates imbalance and quiet resentment. When a man abandons his center, he loses his gravity. And when gravity's gone, attraction fades, no matter how much effort he pours in. The first mistake begins innocently and feels responsible, even noble, but it slowly transforms desire into obligation and turns intimacy into a role that no woman can remain attracted to. This is where everything starts to unravel. The first mistake is taking responsibility for problems that do not belong to you. On the surface, this looks like care, competence, and leadership. Men are natural problem solvers. When something breaks, feels chaotic, or creates stress, the instinct is to step in and fix it. In business, this trait builds respect. In emergencies, it saves lives. But in romantic relationships, when applied without awareness, it quietly dismantles attraction. When a man consistently solves a woman's problems for her, he slowly changes the emotional structure of the relationship. He stops being a partner and becomes a guardian, a manager, or unpaid service staff. Passion cannot survive in this dynamic. Attraction does not arise toward someone who feels responsible for your survival or emotional regulation. It arises toward someone you respect as an equal, someone whose presence adds to your life, not someone who manages it. This mistake shows up in countless subtle forms. He steps in to resolve her conflicts with friends. He helps write her work reports or fixes her professional mistakes. He fills financial gaps created by impulsive decisions. He becomes the emotional clown or therapist whenever she feels bored, stressed, or moody. Each individual action seems harmless. Together, they create a powerful message: I don't believe you can handle life without me. Psychologically, this positions the man as a rescuer. Rescuers are often appreciated, but they are rarely desired. Gratitude and attraction activate different parts of the brain. Gratitude produces politeness, comfort, and dependence. Attraction requires tension, polarity, and respect. Over time, the woman may feel safe and supported, but she also feels bored. The spark fades not because he did something wrong, but because he did too much of what felt parental. The healthier alternative is not indifference, but restraint. Support without overparenting, instead of saying, "Step aside." "I'll fix it," a grounded man says. "That sounds difficult. How do you plan to handle it?" He listens without hijacking the problem. He offers presence instead of control. He allows her to struggle, learn, and grow because he trusts her strength. Constant rescuing creates dependency. Dependency quickly turns help into expectation. What once felt generous becomes an assumed duty. And when a man finally feels unappreciated, he is often shocked by the complaints he receives. He doesn't realize that by removing her responsibility, he also removed her respect. A respected man believes in her capability. He provides an emotional container, not a rescue mission. He understands that every problem he steals from her is an experience she never gets to earn. And by overfixing, he doesn't just exhaust himself. He quietly kills his authority and attraction in her eyes. This mistake feels loving, but its consequences are brutal. And once you see it clearly, you start to understand why so many men feel used instead of desired. The next mistake goes even deeper, because it involves giving up something far more dangerous than time or effort. It involves giving up yourself. The second mistake is abandoning your mission, your goals, and your sense of purpose for a woman. This one often sounds romantic, especially in movies and love stories where a man drops everything just to be near her. In real life, it functions like slow poison. It does not destroy attraction overnight. It erodes it gradually, almost invisibly, until one day she wakes up and no longer feels drawn to the man she once admired. When a woman first feels attracted to a man, it is rarely because of how available he is. It is because of his direction, his energy, his engagement with life, his sense that he is moving toward something meaningful. His purpose gives him weight. When a man abandons that path, he doesn't become more loving. He becomes smaller. This mistake often begins subtly. A new relationship starts, and he begins skipping the gym. He studies less. He stops working on long-term goals. He sees friends less frequently. Everything in his life narrows until she becomes the central source of meaning, validation, and emotional stability. At first, she may enjoy the attention, but soon, something feels off. The man who once had momentum now revolves around her. Psychologically, this creates pressure. When a woman becomes the sole center of a man's existence, the relationship shifts from connection to dependency. This is not love. It is parasitism dressed up as devotion. No woman wants to feel like she is responsible for a man's sense of purpose or identity. She wants to walk beside him, not carry him. Ironically, the very qualities that attracted her in the beginning begin to disappear. His passion fades, his edge dulls, his world shrinks, and with it, her attraction slowly collapses. 6 months later, she may leave, saying she feels no spark, no excitement, no polarity anymore. He's left confused, heartbroken, and without the life he sacrificed to keep her. A man's purpose is non-negotiable. The right woman does not ask him to abandon it. She supports it. She respects it. She may miss him sometimes, but she does not need him to shrink. Men with lasting magnetism always maintain projects. ambitions, and passions that exist independently of any relationship. Love is not about losing your direction, it is about sharing it. When a man stays connected to his mission, he brings energy into the relationship instead of draining it. He remains someone she can admire, not someone she must manage emotionally. This mistake teaches a painful lesson: sacrificing your future for someone rarely secures their loyalty. It often accelerates their departure, and when purpose disappears, insecurity quietly takes its place. That insecurity leads directly into the third mistake, one that destroys attraction faster than almost anything else. The third mistake is seeking her approval and competing for her attention. This one is especially dangerous because it often disguises itself as care and emotional sensitivity. On the surface, it looks like attentiveness. Underneath, it is a constant hunger for validation that quietly suffocates attraction. A man caught in this pattern begins scanning her reactions like a radar. If she frowns, he adjusts his opinion. If her tone shifts, he rushes to fix the mood. He repeatedly asks if everything is okay, not because something is wrong, but because he needs reassurance. His emotional state starts rising and falling based on her responses. Her approval becomes water, and without it, he feels anxious and incomplete. At the same time, he may start competing for her attention. He feels threatened by her friends, her colleagues, her hobbies, or even her time alone. Other men feel like rivals instead of being present and grounded. He tries to outperform, outshine, or control the environment so he doesn't lose his position. The relationship turns into a silent competition for security. Both behaviors send the same message: deep insecurity. Insecurity is one of the strongest attraction killers there is. When a man places a woman above himself emotionally, she is unconsciously pushed into a parental role. She becomes the one who evaluates, approves, or reassures. But a woman cannot feel desire toward someone she experiences as a boy seeking permission. An emotionally attractive man is internally anchored. His self-worth does not fluctuate based on how she feels in a given moment. He doesn't compete, because he knows his value is not determined by comparison. If she doesn't recognize that value, he doesn't panic. He registers it as information, not a personal failure. Here lies the paradox many men struggle to accept. The moment a man stops chasing approval, he often becomes more attractive. Scarcity creates value. Emotional self-sufficiency creates curiosity. When a man no longer needs constant reassurance, a woman begins to wonder where she stands with him. She starts seeking his approval instead. This is why confident men appear relaxed. They are comfortable in themselves. They are not performing. They are not fussing. Their sense of worth is built on their principles, skills, and lived experience, not on someone else's mood. They do not beg to be chosen. They live in a way that makes choosing them feel natural. Seeking approval feels safe, but it slowly erases polarity. Competing for attention feels protective, but it reveals fear. And fear is never attractive. This mistake often leads men to overcompensate in another way, one that seems generous but quietly signals desperation. That is the fourth mistake, and it destroys intrigue before it ever has a chance to grow. The fourth mistake is excessive investment before it has been earned. Even intelligent, self-aware men fall into this trap. A spark appears, chemistry feels strong, and suddenly he goes all in. Expensive gifts arrive early, messages flood her phone, plans for trips, futures, and deep emotional commitments appear before the foundation has formed. To him, this feels sincere. To her nervous system, it feels overwhelming and strangely empty. Attraction needs space to breathe. It grows in moments of anticipation, curiosity, and gradual discovery. When a man dumps all of his emotional and material resources into a woman too early, he removes the mystery that fuels desire. There's nothing left to wonder about, nothing left to earn, nothing left to unfold. The relationship jumps straight to the end without enjoying the journey. This behavior also quietly devalues the man. When someone invests heavily without requiring anything in return, it signals low standards. It says, "You don't have to show effort for me to give you everything." Desire does not grow in that environment. People value what requires participation, not what is handed to them freely with no resistance. Another hidden consequence is that excessive early investment deprives her of the chance to invest back. The natural rhythm of connection is reciprocal. She reaches, he responds, he invites, she accepts. Both sides contribute. When one person builds the entire bridge alone, the other becomes a passive observer. The thrill of the hunt disappears, and with it, attraction fades. Healthy investment is gradual and mirrored. When she shows effort, he reciprocates. When she invests emotionally, he opens further. This is not manipulation, it is self-respect. Time, attention, and care are expensive resources. They are meant for people who demonstrate consistency, respect, and genuine interest over time. Excessive messaging, constant availability, canceling personal plans to accommodate her, or making grand gestures too early all communicate the same thing: neediness. And neediness repels desire, no matter how kind the intention behind it is. A man who values himself does not flood, he invites. Desire grows when both people feel they are choosing each other, not when one person is desperately trying to secure the other. When investment flows in one direction, attraction collapses. And when attraction collapses, respect soon follows. But there is one mistake even more damaging than overinvestment. It doesn't just weaken desire, it destroys respect entirely. Once this line is crossed, relationships rarely recover. That mistake is tolerating disrespect, and it marks the true point of no return. The fifth mistake is tolerating disrespect. This is the point where attraction and respect don't just weaken, they die. Disrespect rarely arrives as something dramatic at first. It begins quietly, almost invisibly. A biting comment disguised as a joke, a dismissive tone during disagreement, a broken agreement that goes unaddressed to avoid tension. Each time a man swallows it for the sake of peace, he teaches her something dangerous about how he values himself. When disrespect is tolerated, it becomes normalized. The bar lowers gradually. What once would have been unacceptable becomes routine. And when a man finally explodes months later, she's often genuinely surprised. In her experience, nothing changed. He trained her to believe it was allowed. On a psychological level, many women unconsciously test boundaries, not out of malice, but out of instinct. They are looking for strength, stability, and self-respect. When a man fails these tests by tolerating behavior that violates his standards, he signals weakness. And weakness cannot sustain attraction. A man who accepts anything to avoid abandonment becomes invisible as a sexual and emotional figure. Maintaining authority does not require aggression or cruelty. It requires clarity. A grounded man calmly names what is unacceptable. He might say, "I don't allow that tone," or "that behavior doesn't work for me." And then, most importantly, he follows through with real consequences. He creates distance. He ends the conversation. He walks away if necessary, not as punishment, but as self-respect in action. This is where many men struggle. They fear that boundaries will push her away. The truth is the opposite. Women lose respect for men who tolerate everything. Boundaries create safety. They communicate that the man knows who he is and what he stands for. Even if a woman reacts emotionally in the moment, she registers the strength beneath it. Choosing short-term peace over long-term respect always leads to defeat. A man who becomes a doormat eventually loses his own self-respect, and once that is gone, no one else will respect him either. Love cannot survive where dignity has been abandoned. All 5 mistakes share the same root: Fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of loneliness, fear of loss. And acting from fear always creates the very outcome a man is trying to avoid. To understand how to reverse this pattern and what a healthy alternative actually looks like, we need to step back and look at the bigger picture that connects all of these behaviors together. When you look at all 5 mistakes together, a clear pattern emerges. Each one is rooted in the same internal imbalance, placing a woman above yourself. Society often labels this as love, devotion, or emotional maturity. But attraction does not respond to moral intentions. It responds to value, stability, and polarity. The moment a man puts someone on a pedestal, he automatically steps below them, and from below, desire cannot survive. This is why so many men feel confused. They believe they are doing everything right. They give more, tolerate more, sacrifice more, and explain themselves endlessly. Yet the relationship slowly deteriorates. What they don't see is that attraction is not earned through self-erasure. It is sustained through wholeness. A man who is complete within himself does not cling. He chooses, and that difference changes everything. Healthy love comes from abundance, not scarcity. A needy mindset asks, "How do I keep her?" A grounded mindset asks, "Is she right for me?" Scarcity says, "I need you to feel whole." Abundance says, "I choose you because my life is already full." This shift alone transforms how a man shows up in relationships. His energy becomes calm instead of anxious. His presence becomes steady instead of performative. The mistakes we discussed are not created by arrogance. They are created by fear. Fear of not being good enough, fear of ending up alone, fear of being replaced. But acting from fear always produces the very outcome a man is trying to avoid. The more he sacrifices himself to secure love, the less secure that love becomes. Attraction cannot be bought with effort. It responds to inner strength and self-respect. The alternative is not emotional distance or coldness. It is integration. A man with a mission does not abandon it. A man with boundaries does not negotiate his dignity. A man who invests expects reciprocity. A man who respects himself does not parent, chase, or beg to be chosen. He lives by his values, and the right people are drawn to that naturally, while the wrong ones fall away without drama. Stopping these 5 behaviors is not about controlling women. It is about reclaiming yourself. When a man rebuilds his inner foundation, the external world adjusts automatically. Relationships become healthier. Attraction becomes mutual. Respect becomes stable instead of fragile. If this perspective challenged what you were taught about love, that's a good sign. Growth always begins with discomfort. If you want to continue uncovering the psychological truths behind attraction, relationships, and human behavior without illusions or fairy tales, subscribe to the Sicaria channel. Haria.